and Dr. Monsef Slaoui, Chief Scientific Advisor to Operation Warp Speed. They will both make opening statements, and then we will open up the call.
Of the day has been the news that the MHRA, the UK regulatory agency, has approved the AstraZeneca vaccine now. And on what we call the standard dose, the same vaccine doses as used in the phase 3 trial conducted here in the US with the AstraZeneca vaccine, but given 3 months apart. This is based on, frankly, more of a conceptual observation than space vaccine doses, the better the immune response after the second dose. This is well known, but of course, it's a trade-off with the fact that people will spend, as approved, about 3 months after only one dose has been given, and exactly the efficacy of the is based on smaller number of cases, 50%. The vaccine efficacy is very good against severe disease. Vaccine efficacy in the elderly, which, as you know, is the most impacted population with this virus, is actually effectively unknown, because there were very few cases in the elderly population, because the trials at that time had not recruited too many elderly people. But that said, a very important step forward with the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. As you know, that vaccine is in phase 3 trial here in the US. We have almost totally completed the recruitment of that trial. We have 29,700 subjects in the study out of the about 30,000 that are planned. And cases will start to accrue. We project, if everything goes well, that readouts and emergency use authorization may be granted somewhere early in the month of April. And by that time, several tens of millions of doses of this vaccine will have been manufactured at Emergent and will have been stockpiled, and therefore will be available for use if the data support its approval, as has just been the case with the MHRA. So an important progress this week, in fact, this day. The second important point is the Novavax vaccine. The Novavax vaccine has started phase 3 trials on the 27th. We already have 1,000 subjects recruited in the study. 10 sites that will be participating in the trial have already been activated and are recruiting. The trial is being conducted currently in the US and in Mexico, and may also include and potentially to bring these countries into the trial fast enough. It's very important that we recruit subjects here in the US, but also outside of the US, because we project that there will be some challenges having subjects at risk, particularly the elderly, the healthcare workers, and people with comorbidities participating into the trial when there is the Moderna and the Pfizer, and potentially over time the Janssen vaccines available for use and immunization in mass. The third point concerns, so that's a great progress with the Novavax, and as you know, Novavax is the first protein vaccine to progress. It's in fact the 5th out of 6 vaccines in our portfolio that's progressing into phase 3 trials, about 9 months after starting this endeavor, 8 months and a half. The next program is the J&J Janssen's vaccine. You know, we announced last week that the phase 3 trial recruitment has been completed, and we are very diligently working with the company and with the regulators. We feel more and more confident that readout of efficacy will take place during the month of January, and very likely that an EUA submission will take place during the month of January, so within the next 4 weeks. And hopefully an approval may be reached in the first half of the month of February. And we are also working hard with the company and the FDA to further accelerate vaccine doses availability during the month of February. I think it can be quite a game changer. We are hopeful that this vaccine, which is a one-shot vaccine, will have equivalent efficacy to those of Moderna and Pfizer. We'll comment on that once we have the data. I'd like to attract your attention on the confidence intervals that are around each one of the numbers of efficacy for Pfizer and Moderna, 95%, with a confidence interval between 89 and 100, meaning if they were to repeat these studies with the same vaccine, efficacy would come anywhere between 89% and 100%. The next point to raise your attention is on Moderna and Pfizer. We continue to have good supply into the system and output of vaccine doses. General Perna, my colleague and partner, will of course brief you more thoroughly on that. What I want to say is with the Moderna vaccine, we really would like to encourage more adolescents to participate in the clinical trial that's ongoing, trial between the age of 12 and the age of 18. We only have 22 subjects recruited in the study. We understand that it's a little bit of a challenge given the holiday season, but after the holidays, I think it's really important for more adolescents to participate in this clinical trial. This is a highly effective and very safe vaccine, and by participating in the trial, we will be able to accelerate the approval of this vaccine next to the Pfizer vaccine for use in this younger population. I think it's very important to do. We're also continuing to work with the company and with the FDA on potentially using a lower dose in 2-dose immunization to increase the capacity faster. This is, of course, only relevant if it can be done on a very short-term basis. Continuing progress with the Sanofi vaccine, the other protein-based vaccine. We are now looking at starting the phase 2B program as per Sanofi's press release, hopefully by the middle of the month of February. On the therapeutic side of things, we have more data on usage of the monoclonal antibodies. We raised the challenge that not enough of the monoclonal antibody doses available in hospitals are actually being used. So there's good news and less good news. The good news is there is a progression week on week on the usage, going from 10% last week to 20% this week. The less good news, it's only 20%, and we really need to continue to work hard on the various reasons that are very, very pragmatic reasons why usage is more limited. It's very important that we progress there. I will stop there and pass on to General Perna, who will now brief you, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Slaoui. For everybody, happy holidays, and thanks for being with us again this week as we try to keep you updated with everything that we know that's going on. So this week, we've provided jurisdictions with the final allocations of doses available. That means by tomorrow night, all the jurisdictions will be able to place orders for up to 20 million doses of vaccine, which has been collective over the last 2 weeks plus since the first EUA by Pfizer and then following EUA by Moderna. We are really doing well, in my opinion, in distribution. Over 14 million doses of vaccine have been distributed to date, and every day we push more vaccine. I'll talk about that as we go forward. In fact, this week we started not only pushing first dose vaccine, but we started pushing second dose vaccine for the Pfizer vaccine as people who received the first dose around 4 January will start to be eligible for the second dose, and we wanted to ensure that the vaccine was available to all. The cadence for our execution is really coming into good posture. We're allocating to the states on Tuesday. States are available to order off the allocations on Thursday. We're picking and packing supplies to ensure it can be delivered by the following week. Really remarkable effort by the collective group of professionals, the men and women who have been working tirelessly from Pfizer, Moderna, McKesson, UPS, and FedEx as they execute this every day. And they are the ones that are executing the movement of the vaccine. I'd be remiss if I did not highlight the great work by the state and local governments as they do the planning and they determine the allocation at the state levels and the final administration, I think has been an incredible task. So I just would like to take a minute as we close out this year to kind of think about where we've been over the last 7.5+ months since Dr. Slaoui and I were notified and presented at the Rose Garden in May. So what have we done? We've developed 2 safe and effective vaccines now for use, authorized for use to the American people. We've scaled up manufacturing capacity, in some cases building new brick and mortar from the ground up. We've issued 18 Defense Production Act ratings, which allows us to prioritize materials, supplies, and equipment essential to the U.S. government contracts. It puts them at the front of the line. Hired and trained new staff and embedded logisticians and supply chain experts in all the manufacturing facilities as we move forward. We developed and launched a new data system that connects hundreds of existing systems at the state and local level to allow us to have visibility so that we can see ourselves across the entire United States. We've executed extensive planning starting with the CDC putting out their playbook in September, and then extensive coordinations with the state health officials every day, every week, and every month since. And it continues as we go forward. We dedicated regional planning teams that are constantly available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at the CDC in support of the state and local governments. We provided IT specialists to help all the jurisdictions to see themselves so that they understand exactly where everything is at a single point of time. They can plan and direct accordingly. We developed a program, the CDC really developed a magnificent program to, in collaboration with CVS and Walgreens, to go to all of our long-term health care facilities and administer a vaccine to really one of the 2 top priorities, the elderly living in these homes. Over 906 clinics conducted to date as we ramp up to 4,000 a week. So really remarkable tasks. We've inked a partnership with 19 pharmacy chains to ensure as we go from stage 1A to 1B that we can expand the capacity of distribution throughout the country, which gives everybody greater access to the vaccine in each state as directed by the governors and the state health officials. We funded distribution for vaccines alongside of ancillary kits to ensure that those things were there when they were needed. And we did this early on so that we had the right distribution mechanisms and the right ancillary kits to be distributed with the vaccine. And we provided dry ice to everyone who wants it on the first replenishment for all Pfizer vaccines. We cut through the red tape, right, to ensure all the vaccines provided to Americans will be free of charge. And finally, as I started out with, we've allocated and will be available for final ordering 20 million doses by this Thursday. Distributed more than 14 million doses of vaccine to over 10,800 locations. And we have administered over 2 million doses in the last 2 weeks. Really a remarkable feat. And everybody collectively should be very proud, right? The federal government, industry, academia, state and local governments. It has been a whole of America approach. As we work every day to make sure that the vaccine gets to where it needs to be, we are out checking. Yesterday I was able to go visit 2 hospitals in the local area, one in D.C. and one up in Maryland, and I just saw remarkably dedicated staffs who were engaged, who understood the vaccines under their care, who were involved in making sure that they were executing administration the right way to ensure that it's effectively used to the priorities of the governors in implementation. I was highly impressed. Remarkably dedicated people working every day as they go through this. They've done this over the last 2 weeks through holidays, trying to give everybody some time off after a long year of fighting the virus, as they're working through the administration of the vaccine to ensure that everybody gets it at a different time and not everybody at one time. And then they've worked through 3 major snowstorms in the last 2 weeks, and still really a remarkable job. So I just want to applaud everybody's efforts collectively as we work through the vaccines for the last 7.5 months, vaccines and therapeutics. Our responsibility is to ensure that we are developing, manufacturing, and delivering safe and effective vaccines and therapeutics to the American people. And so I'm just thrilled to be a part of this, and I'm excited about all the collaboration and great work that everybody's done to date. Thank you.
Thank you to you both. Moderator will now open it up for questions. As a reminder, please state your name and outlets, and please keep your questions as short as possible so we can get to as many as we can. Thank you.
As a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, please press *1, unmute your phone, record your name and your outlet clearly. Your name and outlet are required to introduce your question. If you need to withdraw your question, press *2. Again, to ask a question, please press *1. We'll go ahead and begin with Sarah Orman from Politico. Ms. Sarah, your line is now open.
Hi, thank you. This is Sarah Overmalt from Politico. Dr. Slaoui, I wanted to ask, or you were breaking up a little bit in the beginning when you were talking about the AstraZeneca vaccine. Were you saying that you felt the British approval was premature, or, I mean, since the U.S. approval will be, like you said, months later, how are you squaring those two things? And then General Perna, I know that HHS said yesterday that there's some lag in the CDC numbers for vaccination rates. So what's the disparity there? Like, how much of a lag is there, and what are the real numbers?
Yeah, so I hope you can hear me okay. MHRA is a science-based, highly well-skilled regulatory agency, and therefore I am not raising any question as to the decision that they have made. Having said that, the requirements and the decision process as we have built it here in the US is what I can really comment on and what I know from within. And that was the sense of my comments. The date of April for an emergency use authorization is based on completion of the phase 3 trial that's being run here in the US, where we understand the clinical trial material that was used, how and where it was manufactured. We understand that immunization has happened all the time according to a given dose in the right schedule, and the safety database is being analyzed and generated exactly as has been the case for the other trials. I have no doubt that the vaccine is very effective against severe disease and is effective in the population where it was tested. For me, the biggest question mark, frankly, is efficacy in the elderly population that needs to be further documented, just because there were not enough cases in the elderly, because there were not enough elderly subjects recruited in the trial early on. I know that there will be further analysis of the UK and Brazil trials that may actually give an information about that. As far as the American people are concerned, I think it's important that we are able to say one vaccine has 95% efficacy, another vaccine has X%, whatever is that number. We need a clear and concrete number, more than a number that is accumulated by adding together different trials with different schedules and different material. So no criticism, but more a focus on how we are doing it. And it will be, of course, an FDA decision to decide whether to consider also approval on the basis of the data that MHRA has used or not. I do want to add one thing as I have the microphone open, just to join General Perna in thanking and acknowledging the work of the tens of thousands of people that are involved in the development, manufacture, supply of the vaccine and administration of the vaccine. And with the general, we have toured so many agencies in the various states, health agencies, to discuss the rollout of the vaccine and the administration of the vaccine. We have engaged with all the players and all the parties involved in this process and heard their input on how we can optimize and maximize the usage of the vaccine doses available. We committed to have 20 million doses distributed to the US population, and that's the number, as General Perna has said, that will be actually available to take from as of tomorrow, and 14 million doses are already where they should be administered. We have heard and agree that 2.1 million, and frankly, I don't know the exact last number. It's in the system somewhere. There's a lag in how the numbers are computed, but surely it's a number that is smaller than the 14 million doses that are out there already available for use. We agree that that number is lower than what we hoped for. We philosophically, as we have always done, do not spend too much time describing a challenge. We then very quickly move to addressing the challenge. And as we have always done, we would like to invite anybody that has energy to participate and help us further improve administration of the vaccine to come to the table, put your sleeves up, and come help us with specific ideas. We know that it should be better, and we're working hard to make it better. So we welcome really very much any input, but it needs to be specific and actionable. Thank you. General Perna, I don't know if you would like to add something.
I'm in full support of what you just said, Dr. Slaoui, at the end there accordingly. I would also say I'm working personally on a 72 to 96 hour lag. That data will tighten up as we, the systems and reporting becomes more regular and routine, and we'll adjust, that lag as we gain more data. But we absolutely are advocates of higher uptake, and I have a lot of confidence personally that the states at the state level and local levels are working this aggressively, especially as they execute, 1A priority with first-line medical persons and then long-term healthcare facilities. Two very difficult, challenging groups, but the right groups, and so I am confident that everybody's working it the right way to make sure that the vaccines are most effective in those groups.
Next question, please.
Our next question comes from Angelica Levito from Bloomberg. Your line is now open.
Hello. So during last week's briefing, you mentioned that the federal government has the ability to help the state and local governments administer these vaccines faster. So what exactly are you doing, and will you need to readjust those plans given that just a fraction of the doses distributed are actually being administered?
So we always have to continue to assess and adjust. I mean, that's what we do all the time in life, right? We just don't keep walking straight ahead if things aren't going where we need. So we assess and we continue to make adjustments, as Dr. Slaoui just said, and I'm going to add on. And so, what have we done? We've worked hard to make sure the long-term healthcare facilities were ready to be implemented with the great partnership of CVS and Walgreens and the states. And I think, that is going to be a very, very sound program that in years to come will be used as a model. Second, as more vaccine becomes available, and we do see, very good steady drumbeat of our vaccine coming off the manufacturing and fill finish line, then we'll be able to expand distribution through the local brick and mortar pharmacy chains, the 19 that I talked about. We want to enable the governor's plans to their priorities, and we think adding them, right, to the distribution matrix, right, through the provider agreements will expand capability and capacity of distribution throughout the entire country. There's over 70,000 pharmacies already enrolled to do this. And so as vaccine becomes available, states determine distribution priorities. I visualize as early as 8 January, between 8 and 15 January, the expansion to their utilization will greatly increase access of vaccine to the American people. And then we're just going to continue on, right? Every day we have to assess, every day we have to keep pushing forward to ensure safe and effective vaccines are available to the American people.
Thank you. Next question.
Our next question comes from Laura Neergaard from the Associated Press. Your line is now open.
Hi, thank you. Can you talk a little bit more about the decision by Britain today to actually allow a longer lag between first dose and second dose? Is that something that scientifically makes sense, and is that something that the U.S. might consider in trying to push out more first doses? I know you all have been very careful to say you're going to hold back in reserve the second dose for everyone who got a first dose so that there was no lag time.
So, yes, scientifically, we and others have done experiments. When I say we, in my previous life, with other vaccines, have shown that if you space the time between two vaccine doses, 0 and 1 month, 0, 2 months, 0, 6 months, you increase immune response after the second dose. What I said each time when I spoke about that is to say it really is important to have in mind the level of transmission of the pathogen that's happening in the population at that stage, because efficacy after the first dose may be a challenge. Either the point efficacy, so in the case of Pfizer and Moderna, it's very high as of day 14, but we don't know how long it stays. So it's very important to acknowledge that we are in the dark there if we were to space. And in the case of the AZ vaccine, the efficacy that's been described in a very small subpopulation in the trial that has received the spaced period of time with the standard dose is about 50%. So one will need to just be very clear in the communication, and it will depend what alternatives you have in your portfolio of vaccines, whether it is worth protecting at 95% those most impacted by the disease very quickly, or whether it's worth immunizing the broader population with the vaccine at 50% efficacy. And that is only relevant, again, if vaccine doses are available for very widespread use into the population. My understanding in the publications is that the UK has 2 million doses of vaccine available for use as of now. The number of doses of vaccine will become larger as time goes by. So I think this addresses your question. It's an important one, but it's very important, I think, to use a vaccine based on how you have studied it. For me, the biggest concern, if we were to extend the time period between the first and second dose, is what happens to persistence of protection. If we expand that period of time, it probably could go down. And if it goes down, in what way does it go down? Does it go down in a way it's simply less efficacious, or will we have some individuals that may have more severe disease or things like that? I would really advise not to do something that we have no characterization of. And in the case of AstraZeneca and MHRA, there is limited set of data, but at least there is some limited data there too. Nothing wrong is happening, but efficacy is moderate at 50%. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Our next question comes from Rebecca Robbins from the New York Times. Ms. Robbins, your line is open.
Hello, thank you for taking my question. I was hoping you could speak to the main factors that are driving the slower than expected uptake of vaccines, specifically the percentage administered compared to the percentage distributed. I know you'd mentioned the lag in reporting, but I was hoping to hear if you had a read on the other factors on the ground level that are influencing this lag.
So, we're still gathering data. The CDC is working diligently on that as they work with the states. I do know that reporting has been really remarkable in its clarity to them, and they're assessing and working through the details. I know there's an extensive amount of collaboration going on between the CDC, regional coordinators, and each of the jurisdictions and states accordingly. To have greater specificity at this time after 2 weeks, I don't think would be appropriate. I do believe, has been reported to me, is that vaccine allocations or uptake usually starts out a little slow, and then it increases exponentially and very rapidly. Take into effect one that the Pfizer vaccine came out 1 week before the Moderna vaccine. Essentially, it's been just 12 days. There's 2 holidays. There's been 3 major snowstorms. There is everybody working through how to do the notification, how to make sure we're administering it the right way, how to ensure that it stays in accordance with the cold chain. There's numerous factors, and here's what I have confidence in. Every day, everybody gets better, and I believe that uptake will increase significantly as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Our next question comes from Ann Seardy from ABC News. Your line is now open.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. Just to build on that, based on what you've seen in the past 15 days, does any of this adjust your timeline that the broader public would have access to these vaccines by April?
Well, in terms of vaccine doses available, manufactured, approved for use, there's no reason to believe there will be any change. We still believe, of course, we know that the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines are approved, are highly effective, are being manufactured as per plan. We had planned 20 million doses by the end of the year. They are there. Our plans continue to be the same. I have each time cautioned that manufacturing a vaccine is very complex, and therefore at some point there could be hiccups, but there's none at this stage. And therefore we will continue to have enough vaccine doses to go through the at-risk population and start to immunize, particularly as we sign the options with both Moderna and Pfizer to acquire another 100 million doses from each to make vaccine available and immunize the general population in terms of vaccine dose availability and capacity to distribute it. And in addition, I remain very confident that the Janssen's vaccine will be available probably in the month of February. And remember that the AZ vaccine, based on the trials running here in the US, may become available in the month of April. And so could the vaccine from Novavax that has just started its phase 3 trials. So from an availability standpoint, there is no issue. From an administration standpoint, I concur with General Perna that there's a learning curve into the system, and we're going through it. Particularly, a number of days have been quote unquote lost because of the holidays or snowstorms. Or we're learning, and we'll continue to learn, and we'll continue to listen and seek input, specific input from others to help further accelerate the uptake. I think as people see in the broad population that these vaccines are safe, people will again come forward more for vaccination. As vaccines become available in pharmacies, I think it will become more straightforward to go to a pharmacy and be immunized. So I expect that things will move back quickly. What we should be looking at is the rate of acceleration over the coming weeks, and I hope it will be in the right direction.
Thank you. Moderator, we have time for 2 more questions.
Understood. The first of 2 is going to be Isaac Stanley Becker from Washington Post. Sir, your line is open.
Hi, thanks for doing the briefing and happy holidays. I wonder if I could ask just a couple really quick questions. One is that when you said that 14 million doses have been distributed, that's somewhat more than the CDC tracker is showing. Do you have also an updated sense beyond the 2.1 doses administered, whether that already is somewhat greater over what the CDC tracker that hasn't been updated since Monday is showing? And then secondly, in terms of long-term care facilities, General, you mentioned last week that I believe 12 states had initiated that program in those facilities, and that 13 additional states were expected to do so this week. Was that the case in terms of those 13? And do you have a sense of, next week or the week after, how many more may initiate that?
So to your first question, 14 million doses have been distributed. There literally may be some doses on the road right now as I speak, but I feel very confident that 14 million doses is what's being distributed to the American people. Reference the jurisdictions, we did last week, 14 states did 906 facilities. This week, 52 of 55 jurisdictions have been enrolled in the process, and they're scheduled to do 4,000 clinics this week alone, which is why I believe the drumbeat will occur the same way as we go forward. We are enacting, we're enabling the state's plans. It's really important that the prior coordination with each facility is done so that we have the right administration done at the right levels, and then we have the appropriate amount of vaccine available. So depending on those two variables, I feel confident that we can keep a pace of 4,000 clinics a week. Over. Thank you.
Thank you, Moderator. One final question.
Our last question comes from Elizabeth Weiss from USA Today. Ma'am, your line is open.
Hey, I couldn't tell, was that my name?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good. Hi, this is Elizabeth Weiss. Thanks for taking my call. I wanted to ask how much of the disconnect is the holdback of vaccine for the long-term care facilities? Because as I understand it, states that are part of that long-term care facility program have to hold back up. They have to have at least half of the necessary vaccine already in-house before they can launch. But it's a little murky to me. Can you give clarity on that?
So what we want to do is make sure that the appropriate amount of vaccines available so that when CVS and Walgreens coordinate times for the clinics, that we are able to do everybody inside of the facility, both the elderly as well as those caring for them. And so really important as we ramp up the total execution that the vaccine's available. So yes, that does contribute to part of the lag, and it could be a good significant number, a couple 100 million for sure as we go forward, because we're working these every day, as I said, and every day they don't get registered until the vaccine gets administered. And so it's a great point that you're bringing up, and clearly could be part of, the lag in the numbers. So more to follow on that. If I could, while I have the mic open, I made a misquote earlier, a questioning. I said that there would be 70,000 pharmacies available as we expand availability and distribution for greater availability. Really, we have 70,000 providers enrolled, which includes hospitals, doctors' offices, and pharmacies. We have 40,000 pharmacies enrolled. And I just wanted to clarify that for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, General Perna. Thank you, Dr. Slaoui. Again, follow-up questions can be sent to media@hhs.gov. And with that, I'll hand it over to the operator to finish out the call. Thank you all. Happy New Year.